Yesterday, Senator Harry Reid announced on Twitter his 12 by 2020 Raise the Wage Act with this. The Kochs want to abolish minimum wage. The Pope wants to lift people out of poverty. I'm with the Pope. Hashtag 12 by 2020 has received a lot of attention. But before we get to that, let's bring in our roundtable on this Friday, May 1st. Joining us now is President of Bannon Communications Research, Brad Bannon, and campus correspondent for campusreform.com, Gabby. Oh, Gabby, help me with your last name. Morrongiello?
Morrongiello.
Ah, I knew I was going to butcher it. We have somebody that's on our crew right now, Justin, and he's Italian, and he was trying to help me out with my Italian, and I'm sorry that I butchered your last name. I'll get better at it, I promise.
No worries.
Well, thank you for joining us here on Newsmax Now. Brad, let's start with you. Are you with the Koch or the Pope? Can you hear me, Brad?
Yes.
So what's your take? Are you with the Kochs or are you with the Pope?
I think the minimum wage should be raised. I quote President Obama. He said that anybody who works full-time, full-time job, should earn at least $15,000 a year so they can support their family. And this moves in that direction. So I'm definitely in favor of raising the minimum wage.
Well, Gabby, let me ask you, though, because isn't this a false choice that Harry Reid is making? Of course, it's not the Kochs versus the Pope on this issue. And plus, we were hearing stories about places like Seattle where they've had the minimum wage increase mandated already. Some restaurants, at least one restaurant in that city, says it's closing down because of the minimum wage increase. There have also been reports about surcharges on bills. So this minimum wage, it cuts both ways, does it not?
Well,
hold on one second, Brad. We're going to get Gabby's take on this.
Well, as Brett and others on the left continue to ignore, the reality of the situation is that only about 15% of minimum wage workers are heads of households with children, and more than half are under the age of 25. So what raising the minimum wage will do is actually hurt young Americans, young adults like me, who are just trying to get their foot into the workforce with these entry-level positions.
All right, let's move along to our next topic. The Hill published an article yesterday. Apparently, the IRS is no longer targeting groups. Government watchdog says significant improvement in agency, not targeting Tea Party groups. Really? IRS is no longer targeting groups? What's your take on this, Brad?
Well, I'm glad they're not. I don't think anybody should be targeted by any government agency for political reasons. And the Inspector General's report also says that conservative and liberal groups were tagged, and I don't think so. I don't think that's right. People should not be penalized for their political views. It's a violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution.
But Brad, I do think, though, that report that you were talking about did show some disparity in the number of conservative groups versus liberal groups that were targeted. But Gabby, let me ask you, this issue is still before a House Congressional Committee investigating it. Do you think this issue still has any legs, though, considering the watchdog now is coming out saying, look, there's not really a lot going on here anymore? Do we still need to investigate Lois Lerner?
Well, absolutely. We need to continue to investigate the IRS because, as we've seen throughout this investigation, is that IRS officials are either uncooperative or seem to be annoyed. And as we gear up for 2016, a lot of the American public is distrustful of these large government agencies and institutions, especially millennials. And so we need to continue this investigation. We need to bring back the integrity and efficiency to these agencies,
all right, Brad,
including the IRS.
Brad and Gabby, one more aspect of this story to talk about, too. A recent Reuters poll shows that over 50% of Republicans want to abolish the federal income, or the IRS, I guess, and less than 40% disagree with that. Also, 60% believe the state should have more authority than the federal government, and that with under 30% that disagree with that. So look at that last set of numbers there. 60% of Republicans believe that they want the states, and you'd expect that. But do you think this issue that's popular with the folks, with the likes of Ted Cruz, about abolishing the IRS is going to be a real election year issue in the Republican primary, Brad?
Yeah, I think it might be an issue in the Republican primary, but it's just typical of the Republican presidential candidates. They play up these issues that the Tea Party loves, but if you look at all Americans, Democrats, independents, and moderates, a large majority don't want to abolish the IRS. So I think they will make this an issue in the primaries, and it will kill them in the general election.
Gabby, does this help or hurt the GOP making this an electionary issue?
Well, a large amount of Americans also want to see integrity restored to this agency, and if that can't happen, then maybe abolishing it is the best move. So I would like to see Republicans debate this, and I don't think it's going to hurt them to have a dialogue on that issue.
All right, we can expect something on that, something about the Fed. It should be an interesting conversation. Brad, Bannon, Gabby, Morrongiello, thank you very much for being with us. We'll have you both back.
You got it right.
I got the lesson from Gabby there, so I got to go second. Thank you guys for being with us. We'll have you back soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, when we come right back, money news, tomorrow's big fight. See how much tickets are selling for just one day before the big match.
It's a lot. And remember when Twinkies disappeared? Well, they're back with a vengeance.